Good morning, Scott here, known as Cantaloupe to some online, and I'm bringing a video to you on a subject that's interesting to me. It might be of interest to you or someone you know, and I want to talk about autism. For my understanding, and full disclosure, I'm not a trained therapist or doctor or psychologist, but I do have experience with autism. I have met people, I've had friends who are autistic, and I know the idea and the subject pretty well, so take it with a grain of salt, but I have some observations to share that hopefully will be of interest to somebody. So autism is overdiagnosed, first of all, like many things. I believe it's way overdiagnosed where it's become a catch-all. There's a spectrum, of course. You've heard about the autistic spectrum, being on the spectrum. I myself am not autistic. I've never been diagnosed with autism, but I've noticed there's a trend. There's a tendency of people to just kind of dump onto that label. They stick the label onto everybody who doesn't conform to anything else. When you run out of diagnoses that make sense and you're trying to be derogatory in some way, consider that autism is a disability. By any definition, by any conventional definition, autism is a type of disability where you are limited in some capacity. So here's where it becomes inappropriate when the label is rolled out to describe somebody with perhaps no disability, but just refuses to conform to expectations. Somebody who behaves differently, and granted, many people behave differently, but that does not constitute autism by itself. Consider that somebody, for example, might refuse to be seduced. A well-known trait of autism is certain inabilities or deficiencies in social interaction, where people are, less predictable, less normal, consistent with, the mainstream type of behavior, especially in terms of, eye contact, romance, empathy, certain sensitivities. And I don't want to do a deep dive into autism, but I'm saying that many people will view somebody with impulse control who chooses, in fact, who has trained themselves or has been trained to have impulse control as being deficient in some way, when, for example, seduction is being used or attempted to be leveraged to get something, and they refuse to participate. They refuse to indulge, their own desires or impulses, and it's misidentified by people who are trying to leverage them as being autistic. So they're going to roll out this derogatory term. They're going to say, well, he's either going to, do the normal thing, or he's going to be disabled or deficient in some way. And we have, turns out, a label for that called autism. So we're going to call him autistic. And it's just an example, hypothetically, if somebody were trying to seduce you for personal gain. And also if you happen to have some kind of, anti-seduction training, if you if there is such a thing. So really, the bottom line, this won't be a super long video, is without some kind of disability, if you are only differently abled and, in fact, greatly abled, above average in every area, then you cannot be called autistic by the conventional definition. You can be called autistic, or any word that somebody chooses, but not by the conventional definition. Consider that to be on the spectrum, with respect to autistic people, there are high-functioning autistic people, but they are also categorically deficient in something, or else they would not have the legitimate diagnosis of being autistic. There's something called Asperger's syndrome, and I've learned a lot about this stuff. Some very famous people throughout history have been thought to have had Asperger's syndrome, such as, Bill Gates, Albert Einstein, other people who are very high functioning, who have what are called savant level skills or abilities. But again, to be autistic, per my understanding, it takes more than just being a savant. You can be a savant without being autistic. You can have unbelievable skills, like just baffling levels of skill, without being autistic. The autism comes in when you are also deficient at something. So, something to keep in mind. The label is rolled out inappropriately. Not everybody's autistic who doesn't conform to expectations, in conclusion. So if you have any comments or questions, reach out to whitehotrobot@gmail.com. Thank you.